And the Secretary of State and the Secretary of Defense are not permitted in our system to be part of electoral politics, which is a good thing, but it means you're stuck with me. So here I am. I was going to go out and help people who had supported her. Instead, I have done 108 events, and I want you to know why. Because I love my country, and I want you to have the brightest conceivable future. And I look around this room and I see, I've just told that this is the second most diverse campus within the AAU system anywhere in the United States. You are the future of America. And this campaign is really important to your future. And I'm very concerned because most of the things I hear and read and see that this campaign's about don't have much to do with your future except in a destructive way. And so I want you to let me just talk to you. This is about your future. If you follow the news, this campaign basically has like been a tale of two stories. And the Republican story goes something like this. Okay, when President Obama took office and he had a relatively new Democratic Congress, they'd only been there 2 years, after we had the Congress for 12 years before, this country was in a big hole. We left him in a big hole. But in 21 months, he has failed to get out of the hole. And in failing, they spent too much money, given us too much government regulation, and there's a big deficit. And you better stop them. They're sort of closet socialists. This thing's just getting out of hand. If you talk to the students outside holding the dump bishop signs, that'd be their line. Right? Isn't that about what they're saying? So the Democratic line back is, we're not out of the hole, but it was a really deep hole. And we're a long way out of it. And we put in place policies that will build us a modern 21st century economy that will rebuild the middle class, reward education and effort, and put America back at the forefront of nations in providing opportunity and bringing us together. And what we're essentially asking for in this election is 2 more years to get us out of the hole and get us roaring into the future. And that's only half as much time as the American people gave the Republicans to dig the hole. So it seems fair to us, right? That's about what we're saying. Okay, now. So, why do all the polls say more people are buying the Republican story than the Democratic story? Here's why. First, this election is occurring in the gap that always happens between when constructive actions are taken and people feel it in their lives. So people still feel full of anxiety. You still got people being foreclosed on, people losing their jobs. People can't pay their medical bills. Kids are dropping out of college. They think they can't borrow any more money on the student loan program, never repay it. You know as well as I do, people still feel anxiety-ridden. And they really only hire the Democrats when things are messed up. They hire us to fix things. And so many people don't feel fixed. Second, we have a lot of interest groups that had their feathers ruffled by what's been done. And they put a lot of money into these anonymous ads because the Supreme Court says that corporations are just like people. They can spend all the money they want and you don't have to tell who the contributors are. But it's fact. The third thing that's happened is what people think about the electorate. Every survey you see on these polls, this is why I want to talk to you, estimates who will vote. And it goes something like this, the formula. Well, we expect there'll be 25% fewer voters this time than there were in the presidential election in 2008. But we think the African American vote will drop 40%, the Latino vote will drop 35%, but the 25 and under vote is estimated to drop from the presidential election 55%. Now, if you let that happen, then all the polls are going to be right. But on this student loan issue alone, and frankly, Congressman Bishop understated the dimensions of the achievement, you're committing malpractice with your own future if you don't vote. And so look, I'd be here for him anyway. He's my friend. He's been a great congressman for Long Island. Stony Brook's gotten $58 million in research grants he helped you get. The Brookhaven Lab's got 2,000 people working there with hundreds of millions of dollars he got to plan your high-tech future. He's been a really good congressman. But this is about your future. And this is a contest of ideas. I believe, number one, that a lot of things that his opponent and the other Republicans say they're for is contradicted by the record they've made. And number two, our ideas are better. Now, he sort of got into this, but in the 7 years and 8 months of the 8 years before President Obama took office, in the 7 years and 8 months before the financial crash, this country was in trouble. We had produced only 2.5 million new jobs while doubling the debt, allowing after inflation median family income to drop $2,000 from, it was lower than the day I left office. More people lost their health insurance, the price of college skyrocketed. There were lots of problems in this country before the meltdown. Then the crash occurs and we lose several million jobs. Now, in their narrative, Tim Bishop and President Obama and everybody with a D after their name become 100% responsible for every bad thing that happened in America from the split second the president took his hand off the Bible, taking the oath of office. Now, keep in mind, we had the biggest financial crash since the Great Depression just 4 months before he took office. It's like saying you could get behind a locomotive going straight downhill at 200 miles an hour and stop it in 10 seconds. This thing didn't bottom out for 6 months after the president took office. So, here's what I think you have to decide. Where are we now? You need to know, the facts matter. Where are we in this mess coming out of it? What do we need to do? Who's more likely to do it? In other words, instead of all this calculation, like all these people say, well, we'll never, I read all these newspaper articles where really good people are having a tough time say, you know, I don't really like these Republican candidates because they're so extreme. I mean, you got a bunch of people campaigning for the repeal of the 17th Amendment. They no longer trust the American people to elect senators. They want state legislators to do it again. They're not trying to take you back to the last 8 years. They're trying to take you back to the 19th century, some of them. And a lot of crazy things. One Senate candidate with a degree from an Ivy League school, a law degree, says that unemployment compensation and Social Security are unconstitutional because the framers didn't provide for them in the 18th century when they wrote the Constitution. It'd be hard to make some of this stuff up. But the governor's candidate, only 2 points and 3 points behind in Colorado against one of the best mayors in America, a Democrat, said that this guy's literally within 5 points of the governor's race, said that President Obama had taken Christmas out of the White House because he was a Muslim. This guy's 5 points behind. They showed him a picture of the White House Christmas tree. And he said, see, I told you, look at all those hidden Muslim symbols in the Christmas tree.
Oh my God.
Now, you can laugh about this, but that's not what this election is about. This is a contest of ideas, the latest battle in a 30-year-old debate. The Republican Party took a real veer away from traditional conservatism 30 years ago. A conservative 30 years ago could support this college. A conservative 30 years ago was a person who believed in living with our means, never running a deficit except when there was a horrible recession and you had to create demand, letting the state and local governments do whatever they could before the federal government took up a cause, and having the federal government only get into something if it clearly couldn't be done by the private sector of state and local government. Those kind of conservatives were like Dwight Eisenhower, who built the interstate highway system. Even Richard Nixon signed a bill creating the Environmental Protection Agency, the Occupational Safety and Health Agency. The new conservatives tell you that the source of every problem America ever had was the government. And if you just get rid of government and cut taxes, especially for the wealthiest people and the most powerful special interests, they will shower all the rest of us with benefits and trickle-down economics. And nobody ever talks about the evidence. But let's just start with this. From the end of World War II to 1980, the bottom 90% of Americans held fast at 64 to 65% of America's income. The top 1% had 9% of America's income. It was unequal, but manageable. In the last 30 years, the percentage the bottom 90% has dropped from 65 to 52, and the percentage the top 1% has gone from 9 to 22. This is not rocket science. They tried an experiment. It didn't work. Why do people keep voting for it? Because they have engendered this visceral distrust of anything that has government on it, and they got a lot of money to back their ideas. You have to decide, it's your future, whether it's worth it. So where are we under President Obama, and what do we do now? Here's where we are. After this calamitous collapse, which bottomed out in roughly July 1st, 2009, the U.S. has recovered 70% of our lost income, our GDP. How's the competition doing? Germany 60%, Japan 50%.